Insight Quarterly Magazine Issue 36 APR June 2025. Compiled and edited by Justin Phillips, Akanksha Verma. Transcribed and printed by Mitra Jyothi. In collaboration with Radio Udon. Subscription Rs100 yearly. Mitra Jyothi Digital Library. Mitra Jyothi. CA Site No. P22, 31st Main, 18th Cross, HSR Layout. Sector 1, behind NIFT College, Bangalore 560102. Phone, 080-2258762 Email, mj.tblibrary@gmail.com. Website www.mitrajyothi.org. Copyright Notice. This book is reproduced in accessible format for people with bona fide print disabilities by Mitra Jyothi, CA Site No. P22, 18th Cross, 31st Main, Sector 1, HSR Layout, behind NIFT College, Bengaluru 560102. Phone No. 2258762 Country Code +91, Bengaluru Code 080, Email mj.tblibrary@gmail.com, Website www.mitrajyothi.org. This book is created for distribution for the print disabled only and in accordance with the Marrakesh Treaty ratified by India on July 24, 2014 and Section 52, 1, ZB, of the Copyright Act, 1957. This accessible format production of the original publication is permitted to be used only by persons with print disabilities. Any further reproduction, distribution to any person without a print disability or any commercial use of this book is strictly prohibited and will be subject to legal action. Content: 1 Editorial, 2 News from Out and About, 3 Cysteine weight loss, 4 World's first climate visas, 5 Stratospheric skydiver Felix Baumgartner dies in paraglider crash, 6 South African rhino horns turned radioactive to curb poaching, 7 Ukraine rescues soldier via drone delivery of complete e-bike, 8 Keratin cure, 9 sprint distance triathlon, 10 race week, 11 vision beyond sight, 12 the inspiring story of Lilyhat Paypad, 13 Lake Painure, 14 Mitra Jyothi News April-June 2025, 15 Coconut Laddu Receipt, 16 Radio Udon News, 17 New exam guidelines for persons with disabilities. 1 Editorial. Dear readers, as this edition is going out, the political alliances are being redrawn throughout the world. A new world order is emerging where economic might and geopolitical ambition collide. Nations are moving from a cooperative, globalization-first mindset to a transactional, our interests-first approach. Whether you call it decoupling, reshoring, or protectionism, the result is clear. The friction in global trade is increasing. This isn't inherently evil. Every country has a right to safeguard its industries and workers. But when tariffs spiral into tit-for-tat skirmishes, consumers end up paying for battles they never chose to fight. Meanwhile, global supply chains grow more fragile, pushing up the price of everything from smartphones to wheat and oil. The challenge before world leaders is not merely to protect their economies but to do so without choking the free flow of goods, ideas, and innovation. And the challenge before us as citizens and consumers is to understand that these abstract policies shape the real costs of living. Tariffs may be the weapons of trade wars, but their impacts are felt far from negotiating tables in living rooms, grocery stores, and our pay slips everywhere. The question is whether nations will continue to redraw the map of global commerce with heavy strokes, or whether they will learn to wield a finer pen. In this edition, we have articles about human endurance, nature's fury, investing, and much more. So sit back and enjoy your reading. If you would like to contribute, please get in touch with us. Happy reading! Justin, Editor. 2 News from Out and About. It's true. New Zealand is one of a handful of countries in the world that is still home to more sheep than people. But humans are catching up, according to new figures released recently. With a population of 23.6 million sheep and 5.3 million people, there are about 4.5 sheep for each New Zealander, Government Statistics Agency data showed. That's down from 22 sheep per person in 1982, when farming sheep for meat and wool was New Zealand's biggest earner. Now, years of falling wool prices prompted by a global shift to synthetic fibers have led farmers to change what they do with their land, the sector's biggest lobby group said. By land area, New Zealand is about the size of the United Kingdom, but it has a human population 13 times smaller than the UK. That means there's plenty of room for sheep. For close to 150 years, the sheep industry was the backbone of New Zealand's economy and numbers boomed, peaking in 1982 when there were more than 70 million sheep and just 3.2 million people. Before Lord of the Rings brought waves of tourists to the country, images of green fields filled with placid sheep against backdrops of snow-capped mountains dominated the country's marketing abroad. But over years of decline for global wool prices since, and despite recent rallies, the national flock has steadily diminished. Now dairy holds the biggest share of New Zealand's agriculture and horticulture dominant export market. The dog that led a 2-year-old boy to safety after he spent a night alone in the Arizona wilderness last week is being praised for his heroism with an influx of gifts from strangers. Scotty Dunton, who owns the 6-year-old Anatolian Pyrenees named Buford, said gifts have been arriving at his doorstep since Bowden Allen's rescue. Toys, chew toys, snacks, you name it, just a little bit of everything, Dunton told NBC affiliate KPNX of Phoenix. Dunton added that he has heard from people all over the world since his dog's rescue mission and that Buford is now an honorary member of the Yavapai County Search and Rescue Team. The team even gave Buford a vest. Bowden wandered off from his family's home in Seligman on April 14. His father, Corey Allen, said he was working on the roof while his wife, Sarah Allen, tended to their 1-year-old child, KPNX has reported. The couple called family members for help searching for Bowden and eventually contacted the Yavapai County Sheriff's Office. More than 40 rescuers and a Department of Public Safety helicopter were brought in to assist. I didn't even know how to process, Sarah told the station. I looked at his empty bed in the middle of the night, and I'm like, this isn't real, he's not. How is he not here? How is he out by himself somewhere in the dark? Dunton, a rancher, said that about 16 hours after Bowden disappeared, he found the toddler on his property. According to KPNX, Buford found the child sleeping under a tree and led him back to Dunton's ranch, which is about 7 miles from the Allens' home. Dunton previously told KPNX that he had traced the child's steps and found that Buford had escorted him for at least a mile. Buford, an Anatolian Pyrenees, normally patrols his land and wards off coyotes. Corey told the station that he feels like God sent that dog to rescue my son. Sarah said, it's unreal, and it's unbelievable. Bowden was reunited with Buford on Monday, KPNX reported. Corey said that life is back to normal for his family and that Bowden is active and exploring all the time. Breakthrough stretchy battery moves like toothpaste and could power pacemakers and hearing aids. Scientists say they've created a battery that can stretch and bend without losing power. The discovery paves the way for wearable technology, smart medical devices, and robots with human-like movements. The texture is a bit like toothpaste, senior author Eamon Ramanujan, an assistant professor at Linköping University in Sweden, said in a statement. The material can, for instance, be used in a 3D printer to shape the battery as you please. This opens up for a new type of technology. Traditional batteries face a trade-off between size/flexibility and power. The scientists at Linköping University's Laboratory of Organic Electronics solved that problem by using materials that can hold and conduct negative and positive charges to power devices regardless of their energy demands. The findings were published April 11 in the journal Science Advances. Batteries are the largest component of all electronics, Ramanujan said. Today they are solid and quite bulky. But with a soft and conformable battery, there are no design limitations. It can be integrated into electronics in a completely different way and adapted to the user. Separating battery capacity from battery size with organic materials. To produce their design, the researchers reimagined the active ingredients, the connective portions and the terminals that make up a battery. The active ingredients of cathodes, positive charges, and anodes, negative charges, are made of modified lignin, an organic material. The connections or positive and negative terminals of the battery are still metallic, but they're made of nanographite and silver nanowires that are small enough to remain flexible with the rest of the battery. The result is a battery that behaves somewhat like a water balloon, retaining its overall shape and holding a large amount of material while remaining flexible, the scientists said in the study. 3. Cysteine weight loss. Eliminating a single amino acid caused mice to lose 30% of their body weight in 1 week, a new study has found. Cysteine is found in nearly all foods, with the study showcasing its critical role in metabolic processes. Read the full study here. Researchers fed adult mice a cysteine-free diet and genetically engineered the mice to be incapable of producing the amino acid. The combined interventions interrupted cells' ability to produce the energy-carrying molecule adenosine triphosphate. The interventions also triggered 2 separate stress responses, a phenomenon previously seen only in cancer cells. The mice burned fat rapidly in a failed effort to produce energy. The elimination of cysteine outperformed any of the 9 essential amino acids in achieving rapid weight loss. Cysteine is present in all fruits, vegetables, and meat, making a cysteine-free diet impractical for humans. Fruits and vegetables have lower levels of cysteine's precursor, methionine, whose restriction has been associated with various health benefits. 4. World's first climate visas. More than 1/3 of residents on the island nation of Tuvalu have applied for Australian climate visas, according to reports Friday. The first-of-its-kind program has been framed as an effort to assist populations most at risk from rising sea levels. The initial program is limited in scope, with only 280 spots awarded per year. Consisting of 9 small islands in the Polynesian South Pacific with around 10,000 people, sea profile, no point on Tuvalu is higher than 16 feet above sea level. A recent NASA assessment found waters had risen half a foot over more than 3 decades, with most critical infrastructure projected to be below the average high tide by 2050. Observers said Tuvalu, which makes almost 10% of government revenue from licensing its .tv internet domain, could significantly benefit from the visas, with workers in Australia sending money to remaining family members, known as remittances. Astronomers have spotted a rare celestial visitor. 3I/Atlas, the third confirmed object from outside our solar system. Discovered on July 1 by a telescope in Chile that's part of NASA's Atlas project, this object is moving at a record 68 km per second, which is faster than any interstellar body seen before. The discovery was described in a circular by the France-based International Astronomical Union on July 2. Its open, hyperbolic path confirms its origin beyond our Sun's gravitational grip. Currently, it is just inside Jupiter's orbit and will pass through the inner solar system in October, providing us a brief but exciting window for study. Signs of a tail visible in it suggest it's behaving like a comet, venting gas and dust as it heats up. Astronomers are gearing up to observe it across different wavelengths to learn about its composition, shape, and origin. Findings could offer insights into planetary formation in other star systems. With advanced telescopes like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, scientists said that more such interstellar visitors may soon follow. 5. Stratospheric skydiver Felix Baumgartner dies in paraglider crash. Known as Fearless Felix, the former Austrian military parachutist became the first skydiver to surpass the speed of sound, reaching 843.6 miles per hour during a more than 24-mile freefall over New Mexico in 2012. The feat set records for the highest manned balloon flight, as well as the highest and fastest jump in freefall. Italian officials confirmed Baumgartner's death Thursday, after reports of a paraglider crashing into a swimming pool in the city of Porto Sant'Elpidio. He was 56. 6. South African rhino horns turned radioactive to curb poaching. The Resedope project in South Africa has developed a safe method to embed low-level radioactive isotopes into rhino horns to combat poaching. The horns are detectable by radiation scanners at borders and ports worldwide, including through 40-foot shipping containers. The project aims to deter illegal wildlife trafficking by offering a tool to protect endangered rhino populations. Last year, 420 rhinos were killed in South Africa. 7. Ukraine rescues soldier via drone delivery of complete e-bike. Drones can now carry significant payloads. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has placed unbelievable pressure on drone developers on both sides of the war, who have responded with astounding innovations that include 1. Fiber optic drones, to prevent radio jamming. 2. Kamikaze Sea drones, eventually equipped with anti-air missiles. 3. Drones that fire shotguns. 4. Bomber drones that drop mines and grenades. 5. Drones that release flaming thermite into trenches. 6. Long-range, aircraft-style drones that can substitute for small cruise missiles. 7. Interceptor drones that hunt down other drones. 8. First-person view, FPV, drones so maneuverable they can be piloted right through a broken window pane to hit indoor targets. 9. Ground drones for both combat and transport. Many drone developers are now chasing the next big thing: AI built right into the drone, allowing it to make autonomous targeting decisions if its communication links are cut. But sometimes you don't need high-tech software, agility, or stealth. Sometimes, you just need a really big drone that can carry an entire e-bike and deliver it to a soldier stranded several kilometers away. Ukraine's 4th Rapid Reaction Brigade of the National Guard, dubbed Rubiz, has just shared video of a large quadcopter drone that it used to conduct just such a mission. And, because this is modern warfare, you can watch a 16-minute video about the operation on the brigade's YouTube channel. In their telling, a soldier with the call sign Tankist was holding a front-line position that came under attack, and a number of his comrades were killed. Tankist found himself cut off from safety and had to hold the position alone for several days. To retrieve him, brigade staff devised a plan to deliver an e-bike via heavy bomber drone. The first drone was shot down, while the second failed under the weight. But the third attempt was successful, and Tankist was finally able to zip back toward Ukrainian lines. He apparently hit a landmine on the way and survived that, too, finishing the trip on a second delivered e-bike. Amazon, of course, has had drone delivery in view for years and is currently testing delivery drones at locations around the U.S., including Pontiac, Michigan, Phoenix, Arizona, and Waco, Texas. But these drones will only deliver packages weighing under 5 pounds. An e-bike weighs considerably more. 8. Keratin cure. Keratin cure. Scientists have created a strange kind of toothpaste. Made from hair or wool, the toothpaste uses keratin protein, which combines with saliva to form a protective crystal-like coating that mimics natural enamel. Unlike fluoride toothpastes that only slow decay, this keratin-based treatment can stop it completely by actually repairing damaged tooth enamel. This could potentially offer the first real solution to permanently repair what was previously considered irreversible damage. A historic wooden church in northern Sweden is being moved across the town of Kiruna to make way for the expansion of the world's largest underground iron ore mine. The 2-day operation is relocating the church about 3 miles to Kiruna's new town center, part of a decades-long plan to shift the entire community. Mining beneath Kiruna by the state-owned company LKAB since 1910 has destabilized the ground, causing subsidence. Built in 1912, the red-painted Lutheran church is one of Sweden's best-known landmarks, blending neo-Gothic architecture with indigenous Sami motifs. The $52 million relocation is funded by LKAB. Engineers lifted the 130-foot wide, 115-foot tall structure from its foundation and placed it on a hydraulic transporter for the journey. The event has drawn national attention, including a visit from King Carl XVI Gustaf and a performance by Sweden's 2025 Eurovision entry, Kai. The church is expected to reopen in 2026. 9 Sprint Distance Triathlon. Event, Tri2 Champ Aqua Festina. Date, June 15, 2025. Location, Chinnakovalam Beach, Bay of Bengal. Dare to do it. 2025 Goal. Olympic Distance Triathlon. Long-term goal. 70.3 half Ironman. I, Vijay Kazival, am a totally blind athlete of Bangalore. I have completed few swimming events in Goa and have swum a maximum distance of 2.5 kilometers in the Arabian Sea. I have done couple of cycling events in Bangalore and have done maximum of 100 kilometers round trip from Bangalore to Kanakapura. In running, I have completed many 10 kilometers runs and half marathons of 21.1 kilometers runs in Bangalore, Mysore, Hyderabad, etc. However, I have never done all the 3 sports together in a triathlon. It was a long pending dream of mine. I finally got an opportunity on June 15, 2025, in Chennai, and I thought I will go for it. To build confidence and improve my timing, I practiced open water swimming in Gunjar Lake, Dod Developur, cycling and running in my neighborhood in Basaveshwaranagar, Bangalore. 10 race week. I focused on getting 7-8 hours of sleep and began tapering my workouts, run, swim, bike. I skipped strength training but continued functional training. I planned my travel in advance and booked accommodation near the venue. I was fortunate to travel from Bangalore to Chennai with my swimming coach Mr. Mohan, who would swim along with me in the event, and my friend Vishnu, who would cycle and run with me in the event. We left Bangalore on 13th night by train. Next day morning we checked into our accommodation and relaxed a bit. Later we visited the Kovalam beach venue. It's a blue flag certified beach, clean and well maintained. As previously informed by organizers, we went for a practice swim between 7-9 am. A 500-meter buoy was placed in the sea with a single support boat managed by open water swim coach Mr. Selvam. Slowly, athletes from all over India gathered, and I was the only visually impaired participant doing the sprint distance triathlon, which includes 750 meters of sea swim, 20 kilometers of cycling and finally 5 kilometers of running. The briefing began at 8 am. Mr. Selvam explained sea entry techniques and how tides, wind direction, and current affect swimming. Tow floats were mandatory for safety. I observed other swimmers struggling to enter the water due to the strong tides and high waves due to heavy winds. I had never come across such rough swimming conditions and failed to enter the sea during the practice. My swimming coach realized the seriousness of the situation and taught me duck diving through the waves to enter the sea. I was a bit nervous for the next day, thinking that swimming will be a tough challenge if the conditions were similar. Post-swim, I returned to the hotel, had breakfast, and took rest. Evening race briefing. From 4-6 p.m., organizer Mr. Nishanth explained sprint distance triathlon category race rules using the race booklet. The bike and run routes were explained. We later collected the race kit along with bib for the event and returned to hotel. Race day, June 15, 2025. We reached the race venue at 4:45 am and collected the timing chip. To my surprise, the sea was still rough and there was no difference in the conditions compared to the previous day. My coach advised me to put all effort and swim the first 100 meters and then it will considerably be easy. I followed the same and was successful to enter the sea. I was confident that if I am able to enter the sea, then I can complete the entire event. Swimming in those rough conditions was challenging and I had never experienced it. Lots of gratitude to my swimming coach who was successfully able to guide me in those rough conditions. After completing swimming, drank hydration, washed my sandy feet, dried them, wore compression socks, put on helmet and bib, and joined my guide Vishnu who was with the tandem cycle in the mount area. Roads were decent, with minimal speed bumps and the traffic was blocked along the route. We completed the cycling and parked the cycle and started to run to finish the final leg. My legs were tired, and I was finding it difficult to run at my regular pace. I was connected to my runner with a rope. Finally, completed the run and enjoyed the whole experience. My sincere thanks to my swimming coach Mohan Sir and Vishnu who guided me in cycling and running. Also I thank the entire TRI2CHAMP team for giving me this opportunity for living my dream. It was a sweet surprise that I secured second place in my age category in sprint distance triathlon event. VJ 11 Vision Beyond Sight. Vision Beyond Sight. A life-changing guide to investing for visually challenged youth in India. Dear young friends, if you are listening to this through a screen reader or accessing it in audio form, I want to begin with a powerful truth. I'm one of you. I am visually challenged and yet, I live with financial independence, dignity, and clarity. Not because I can see the market, but because I understand it. And you can too. This article is not just about money, it's about empowerment, freedom, and self-respect. It's about creating a future where your mind, not your eyes, leads the way. Let me guide you on how investing, especially through exchange-traded funds, ETFs, can help you build a bright and independent life. Why should you invest? In India, many people with disabilities are told to play it safe. But in reality, not investing is the biggest risk because money loses value over time due to inflation. Here's what investing does for you. 1. Financial freedom. 2. Security. 3. Confidence. 4. Identity. Why ETFs are a smarter choice than mutual funds. A recent study by the Economic Times in September 2024 found that nearly 67% of ETFs beat the returns of mutual funds in India. ETFs are more efficient, cost-effective, and transparent. Examples. 1. Nifty 50 ETF tracks India's top 50 companies. 2. Nifty Next 50 ETF tracks emerging leaders. 3. Nifty Bank ETF focuses on top banks. 4. CPSE ETF government-owned profitable companies. Steps to begin investing in ETFs. 1. Choose an index-based ETF, like Nifty 50 or Sensex ETF. 2. Start SIPs monthly via accessible apps like Zerodha or Grow. 3. Stay consistent and avoid emotional decisions. 4. Track progress once every 3 months. Final thoughts. Visual clarity is helpful, but not necessary for wealth creation. What matters more is your mindset, emotions, and habits. You don't need sight to have vision. You don't need luck to build wealth. You only need belief, behavior, and ETFs. You are not behind, you are just getting started. Adding gold to your investment plan, stability you can count on. While ETFs are great for long-term growth, it's also wise to include some stable assets like gold in your portfolio. Why gold? 1. Gold holds value even during crises, wars, inflation, or market crashes. 2. It acts as a hedge, meaning it protects your investments when stocks go down. 3. Gold is universal and trusted across cultures and generations. How can you invest in gold easily? You don't need to buy physical gold. You can invest digitally and securely through 1. Gold ETFs. A. Traded like stock ETFs. B. Backed by real physical gold. C. Safe and low cost. D. Best for 3-5 year horizon. Tip: allocate around 10-15% of your portfolio to gold for safety and balance. Why this suits you? As someone with strong emotional discipline and long-term thinking, gold is a great companion to ETFs. You don't chase returns with gold, you protect your wealth. By combining Nifty 50 ETFs and gold ETFs, you build a portfolio that grows steadily and resists shocks. Ram Shan. 12. The inspiring story of Liyahat Paypad. In the late 1950s, India was still finding its footing as a newly independent nation. Opportunities for women were almost non-existent. Only 8% of women were literate, and most were discouraged from stepping out to work. It was during this time, in 1959, that 7 ordinary women in Mumbai dared to dream. With just 80 given by a social worker, they laid the foundation for what would become one of India's most extraordinary business stories. Liyahat Paypad. The humble beginning. The 7 women Jaswantaben Papat, Parvatiben Nadani, Dujaman Kundalaya, Banuben Tana, Laguben Gokani, Jayaben Vithalani, and Diwaliben Lukka began by making just 4 packets of paypads on a terrace. They sold them to a local shop, and word quickly spread about their products' quality and taste. By 1962, they had adopted the name Liyahat, meaning delicious in Gujarati, and sales had climbed to nearly 2 lakh. But these women had a vision far greater than just running a profitable business. They wanted to create livelihoods for women like themselves, women who needed income but could not leave their homes. So, they structured Liyahat as a women's worker cooperative, giving every member equal ownership. Instead of being employees, they called themselves Liyahat Sisters. Collective ownership. A revolutionary model. From day one, the cooperative decided that money would be a means to empower women, not the sole purpose of the business. Profits and losses were shared equally, decisions were made collectively, and every sister regardless of age, caste, or religion was a co-owner. This principle of collective ownership developed an unmatched sense of belonging and pride. Decades later, global giants like Starbucks would adopt similar practices by offering stock options to employees, but the women of Liyahat had pioneered it without business degrees, investors, or consultants. Building a decentralized supply chain. As demand grew, the cooperative built a unique home-based supply chain. Dough was prepared at central locations and distributed to the sisters, who would roll, dry, and deliver paypads from their own homes. Supervisors ensured quality through regular checks, and standardized aluminum paypad makers maintained consistency. Branches operated independently. If a branch did well, profits were shared among its members. If not, losses were collectively absorbed. This decentralized model allowed Liyahat to grow rapidly without heavy investment in infrastructure, while ensuring flexibility for its members. Staying true to core values. Over the decades, Liyahat Paypad has stayed completely aligned with its founding philosophy Sarvodaya, progress for all. Even today, with more than 45,000 women across 83 branches, Liyahat refuses to lay off workers when buying new machinery, ensuring that automation never threatens livelihoods. Extra profits are used not for lavish expansion but to fund education for members' children, ensuring that the next generation gets opportunities these women never had. Scaling without losing soul. From Rs. 0.6000 in first-year sales, Liyahat has grown into a 1,600 plus crore enterprise, exporting to over 25 countries including the US, UK, Singapore, and markets across the Middle East and Europe. Paypads remain its core product, but the cooperative has also diversified into masalas, detergents, kukras, and bakery items, all without taking external loans or selling equity. Every rupee earned is reinvested into the organization. The brand has no traditional advertising budget. Instead, its reputation for quality and authenticity speaks for itself. Recognition and legacy. In 2021, CO founder Jaswantaban Popat was awarded the Padma Shri for her role in shaping this iconic organization. Even after her passing in 2023, Lilyhat continues to thrive as a living example of what women can achieve through unity, purpose, and perseverance. Lessons for the world. While many billion-dollar companies cut jobs to boost profits, Lilyhat has shown that business success and human compassion can coexist. Its mission and vision have remained constant for over 6 decades, proving that organizations anchored in clear values can endure any challenge. Lilyhat PayPad is not just a brand, it is a movement. It is a story of 7 women who, with no education, no investors, and no corporate strategy, built a business empire that empowered tens of thousands of families. Their journey is a reminder that with determination, shared purpose, and unwavering ethics, even a humble 80 can spark a revolution. Justin. 13 Lake Peigneur. Have you heard of Lake Peigneur? In 1980, something happened here beneath the surface that would forever and drastically change the lake and the surrounding area. It would also be one of the most violent and destructive phenomena to have ever occurred. The sun had yet to rise in the morning of November 20, 1980, but the air inside Jefferson Island salt mine was filled with the smell of machinery and damp salt. Dim lights flickered along the tunnels of the vast cavernous chambers that had been carved from the earth. And it was just another morning for Junius Gad Eisen, the mine's master electrician, as he worked on the 1,300-foot level, gathering electrical supplies from the storeroom. Junius was no stranger to life underground. The mine operated around the clock, 7 days a week, and he had spent years working in the mine deep beneath Lake Peigneur, surrounded by massive walls of basically pure salt. It was a routine job for him, but even the most unremarkable task can be dangerous inside a twisting underground maze of tunnels. Just as he was reaching for a spool of electrical wire, though, something happened. A muffled, unfamiliar sound echoed through the tunnel. It was in the distance, but something about it made him pause. He then set the wire down, listening. Then there was another hollow bang, and then another. These were not the usual sounds of mining he was used to hearing. Obviously, underground work is filled with noise, but the longer a miner works in a mine, the more a miner can tell what sounds normally correspond with the work of the day. This was something beyond normal. It wasn't from distant drilling or the vibration of equipment. Then from the corner of his eye, he saw a thin stream of murky water creeping along the mine floor. He then turned toward the water and saw something even more alarming. Fuel drums, which are usually stacked neatly near the storage area, were moving along the shallow stream. And then it hit him. This could only mean that water, which was not supposed to be there at all, was from the lake above and was pouring into the mine. Without hesitation, he hit the power switch that controlled the lights and the levels below him and flashed the evacuation signal. This communicated to everyone that they needed to get out immediately. Then, grabbing the nearest phone, he shouted into it, calling the hoist operator to lower the mine's only elevator. Somewhere deep below, dozens of men had been working and were now aware that time was running out. Above them, on the lake, something even more horrific was unfolding. For decades leading up to this, Lake Peigneur had been a quiet, unassuming body of water located in southern Louisiana. Spanning about 1,300 acres, it was shallow, barely 10 feet, or 3 meters at its deepest, and it was a popular spot for fishing bass and perch. Few who fished or boated on the lake though ever thought about what was beneath its surface. And understandably, because they couldn't see the labyrinth of tunnels carved into something known as the Jefferson Island Salt Dome. This geological formation, formed over millions of years, was one of 5 in the region beneath Louisiana that were like buried mountains of pure white salt. Over time, shifting geology had pushed these domes upward, creating these small isolated landforms that dotted the area. This salt was valuable, so in 1919, the Diamond Crystal Salt Company began mining operations beneath Lake Peigneur using the room and pillar method. This style of mining requires leaving behind large natural pillars to act as supports to stabilize the mine. And the Jefferson Island salt mine formed underground rooms nearly 100 feet, or 30 meters wide, and 80 feet, or 24 meters tall. Over the years, the mine became an economic powerhouse, employing hundreds of workers across its sprawling network of tunnels. Some of these were as deep as 1,500 feet, or 457 meters. There was, however, another force competing for the riches beneath the lake. The same geological shifts that have created these salt domes also made them prime locations for petroleum deposits. Oil companies eventually caught on to this, and they had been drilling near Jefferson Island for years, hoping to tap into the natural reservoirs that often formed around the salt domes. By 1980, Texaco, one of the world's largest oil companies, had secured the rights to drill an exploratory well on Lake Peigneur. Their goal was to determine whether there was oil below, and if so, extract it. The company then hired Wilson Brothers, a contractor, to operate a floating drilling rig just offshore. It was a standard job and one that had been done countless times before, and so neither the Texaco engineers nor the diamond crystal miners believed there was any risk of interference between their operations. The mine had its own maps detailing the vast chambers below, and Texaco had surveyed the lake bed before drilling. And yet, somewhere in those calculations, something had gone terribly wrong. As Junius watched water rising in the mine, he didn't know what caused it yet, but on the surface just above him, the Texaco drilling rig was already sinking. And the peaceful lake he had worked beneath for years was about to disappear forever. Above ground, Lake Peigneur was deceptively calm at first. The crew aboard the Texaco platform was focused on their drill, which had become stuck. At 4:30 a.m., while boring into the lake bed, the 14-inch drill bit had suddenly jammed at 1,228 feet, or 374 meters. This wasn't entirely unusual. Drilling through compacted sediment and geological formations often led to snags. The crew then attempted these standard fixes like moving the pipe, rotating it, and applying pressure, but nothing worked. By 5:45 a.m., the next crew arrived to take over, and as they ran through the routine troubleshooting process, a few workers began to hear something strange. There were a series of faint popping sounds from deep beneath the earth. Then at 6:30 a.m., the drilling platform tilted slightly. The shift was barely noticeable at first, but the rig was no longer level. Some of the workers then wondered aloud whether the lake bed was unstable. And just in case, they decided to abandon the platform and head for the shore. Then, an hour later, at 7:25 a.m., the rig suddenly lurched hard to one side. Metal groaned, cables snapped, and the entire structure began to collapse. The crew could only watch in disbelief as the drilling rig sank into the lake, disappearing into what should have only been 10 feet of water. This seemed impossible. The drilling rig was taller than the water was deep. Yet, despite this fact, it completely vanished below the water. Then, the lake itself began to move. The water directly above the drilling site swirled, forming a dark whirlpool. The current then accelerated, growing stronger by the second. And soon, it was like the surface of the lake was collapsing inward, as if a bathtub plug had just been pulled from a drain. It didn't take long for people to realize this was no ordinary drilling accident. The Texaco crew, now safely on shore, could only stare in stunned horror. A suction force stronger than anything they'd ever seen before, began dragging objects towards the center of the growing vortex. In fact, 11 supply barges moored nearby were pulled in one by one into the spiraling whirlpool. The most terrifying consequences, however, were still unseen. Beneath the surface inside the salt mine, 55 men were still underground, and the water was coming for them. In the depths of the Jefferson Island salt mine, the sense of urgency was growing. After Junius had triggered the evacuation signal, the underground tunnels were in confused chaos. Word spread fast, but the miners still didn't really know what was going on. The 1,500-foot level of the mine where most men were working was nearly 1/4 mile below the surface. And down there, conveyor belts carried salt, equipment was loud, and trucks continued moving. Then the phone lines went dead shortly after, and the first of the water arrived. It started as a trickle at first, streaming down the walls and pooling at their feet. But in less than a minute, it was a full-blown torrent of dark, rapidly rising water. On the 1,300-foot level, Junius and his crew were already waist-deep in water as they struggled toward the mine's only elevator. The hoist operator had lowered the cage, but there was no telling how long they had before the tunnels completely collapsed. Meanwhile, back on the 1,500-foot level, Foreman Earl Dundas realized just how dire the situation was. He and a handful of men raced against the rising flood, yelling to their co-workers to drop everything and move. Because salt mines, for all their size and depth, were incredibly fragile once compromised. Unlike coal and stone mines, which could sometimes withstand flooding, salt dissolves in water. This meant the pillars that supported the mine were already crumbling. And as more of the lake poured in, the mine was literally melting from the inside out. The only way out was the elevator shaft, and everyone knew it. So, in the darkness, boots splashed through knee-high water, and men gripped each other's arms to keep from falling as they navigated through the collapsing tunnels. The deafening roar of rushing water filled the mine, drowning out shouted instructions. Above, the elevator cage arrived at the 1,300-foot level where Junius and his team had been waiting. They then crammed inside, dripping wet and shaking before signaling for the operator to bring them up. The metal cage then lurched upward, carrying them toward the surface as the lower levels began to vanish beneath the flood. But there were still dozens of men below, and time was running out. On the 1,500-foot level, Earl and his crew reached the base of the elevator shaft and entered, only to find a small group still running towards them as they ascended. These were the final handful of men who had been working deeper in the tunnels. But instead of leaving them behind, Earl made the split-second decision to turn back and guide them through the rising waters. Above them as well, the hoist operator waited for a final load as the shaft trembled, and salt and debris rained down from the collapsing ceiling. Finally, the last group of miners reached the cage. Earl was then the last to step inside and slammed the metal gate shut behind him. The elevator shaft then jerked violently as it made its final ascent. The water had almost reached them, and by the time the cage was halfway up, the 1,500-foot level had completely disappeared, swallowed by the lake. When the final group of miners stepped onto solid ground, drenched and gasping for breath, the hoist operator cut power to the mine because there was nothing left to save below. Back above ground, Lake Panier was no longer a lake. It was a swirling vortex, pulling in everything in its path. What had begun as a small whirlpool above the sunken Texaco drilling rig had now grown to monstrous proportions, dragging in anything near the shoreline. By the time the last miners reached the surface, the land itself was even giving way. Even a tugboat with its engines at full throttle fought desperately to resist the pull, but it was no match for the force of the draining lake. It was dragged back into the vortex and vanished with its crew escaping to safety just in time. Along the shoreline, even entire sections of Jefferson Island crumbled and were pulled into the growing sinkhole. Trees also tipped over, exposing their roots for only seconds before vanishing into the swirling water. In total, 65 acres of land disappeared into the whirlpool. The destruction was unlike anything the people on shore had ever seen. As the mine continued to collapse beneath the lake, trapped air from the caverns was also forced upward, starting as low, hissing gusts from the mine's air shafts and quickly becoming something more violent. Then suddenly, a geyser erupted, shooting a column of water and debris 400 feet, or 122 meters into the air. The force of the explosion apparently rattled windows miles away. And as you might imagine, witnesses could do nothing but watch as everything around them was pulled into the earth, consumed by a force beyond their comprehension. But even after Lake Peigneur had all but vanished, the disaster was far from over, as the Gulf of Mexico soon came rushing in. For as long as anyone could remember, the nearby canal flowed in a single direction, which was out of Lake Peigneur southward toward Vermilion Bay, where it emptied into the Gulf of Mexico. It was a quiet waterway, and again used mostly by fishermen and small boats traveling between the lake and the bay. But after the sinkhole swallowed the lake, something inexplicable happened. The current first stopped and then began moving the opposite direction. Without warning, the canal reversed course. Instead of flowing outward, it began rushing backward, funneling millions of gallons of salt water from the Gulf straight into the lake bed. And with so much water pouring in at once, the sudden reversal of the canal created an extraordinary sight. In the middle of what used to be the lake, a raging waterfall 50 feet, or 15 meters high, had formed. And for 2 days, the waterfall continued, sending billions of gallons of seawater flooding into the space where Lake Peigneur used to be. By the time the flow stabilized, the lake had been changed forever. After the sinkhole formed and the Gulf of Mexico came rushing in, everything was different. The lake was now 200 feet, or 61 meters deep, and claimed the title of the deepest in Louisiana. Its once fresh waters were now salt water, permanently altering the ecosystem, and fish populations and plant life were devastated. Although the lake refilled, it was not the same place it had been before November 20, 1980. The event had physically reshaped the landscape, leaving behind a deeper, stranger body of water that stood as a permanent reminder of what had happened there. Finally, in the days following the disaster, the surface of the lake was eerily calm again. The whirlpool had disappeared, and the land stopped collapsing, and the geyser had gone silent. But the people who witnessed it would never forget what they had seen. In the aftermath of the disaster, investigators were left with an unsettling truth. Despite the enormous scale of the destruction, no one could say with absolute certainty how it happened. Normally, after a mining accident or industrial failure, experts could examine the wreckage and reconstruct events to determine exactly what went wrong. At Lake Peigneur, there was nothing left to examine. The Texaco drilling rig, along with all its equipment, was gone. The mine itself had also collapsed and was buried beneath millions of gallons of water. The borehole that had punctured the mine had also widened into an enormous sinkhole, erasing any trace of its original position. So, with no physical evidence remaining, investigators only had maps, drilling records, and witness testimonies to piece together what had occurred. 2 theories emerged as the most likely causes of the disaster. One possibility was that Texaco's drilling crew had miscalculated their coordinates and unknowingly bored directly into the salt mine. Even a small error could have placed their drill far closer to the mine than intended, triggering the catastrophe. The other theory placed the blame on the Diamond Crystal Salt Company, suggesting that the mine's maps have been outdated or inaccurate. If the underground chambers extended farther than expected, then it was possible Texaco had drilled exactly where they had intended to, only to puncture a tunnel that, according to old mine records, should not have been there. In August of 1981, the Mine Safety and Health Administration released its official report on the disaster. Their findings confirmed the sequence of events. Texaco's drill had punctured the salt mine, allowing water to rush in, dissolve in the support pillars, and triggered the collapse. When it came time to assigning blame, however, the report stopped short. With all the physical evidence destroyed in the disaster, there was no way to definitively determine whether the fault lay in Texaco's incorrect drilling location or Diamond Crystal's mine maps. But while the government never placed full responsibility on either party, the financial consequences were unavoidable. Texaco and Wilson Brothers Drilling, the contractor operating the rig, agreed to pay $32 million to Diamond Crystal Salt Company for the destruction of the mine. In addition, Texaco, Wilson Brothers, and Diamond Crystal also paid out $12.8 million to Live Oak Gardens, which was the botanical garden that had lost a significant portion of its land when Jefferson Island collapsed into the whirlpool. The Jefferson Island salt mine would never reopen, but Diamond Crystal continued operations for a few years after the disaster. However, with the entire underground structure permanently compromised, the company finally shut the mine down for good in December of 1986. Even now, more than 4 decades later, the Lake Peigneur disaster remains one of the strangest and most catastrophic industrial accidents in history. Yet, the most astonishing fact of all was that no human lives were lost. Against impossible odds, all 55 miners trapped below the lake escaped. Their survival was the result of quick thinking, strict evacuation procedures, and the leadership of men like Junius and Earl, who wasted no time in recognizing the danger and acting on it. Unlike many of the other mine disasters covered in the channel, Diamond Crystal maintained a tight operation that prioritized worker safety. The mine's emergency drills were held every 6 months like clockwork, and every miner inside knew exactly what to do when the evacuation signal was given, avoiding what could have been one of the worst mining tragedies in history. For those who witnessed the disaster firsthand, though, as you might imagine, the memories never faded. The whirlpool, the land collapse, the eerie reversal of the canal, and the 400-foot geyser blasting into the sky seem more like something out of science fiction than real life. Even now, many struggle to believe that a lake actually drained into the earth, pulling in an entire ecosystem. 14 Mitra Jyothi News April-June 2025. On April 7, Mitra Jyothi welcomed the 59th summer batch of visually impaired participants who have recently completed their 10th and 12th standards. Over the 3 months, these determined individuals embarked on a transformative learning journey. The program focused on building strong digital skills, with basic training in MS Office using the NVDA screen reader ensuring full accessibility. Mitra Jyothi's curriculum was designed to support holistic development, equipping participants with essential skills for employment and independent living. On April 8, 2025, Mitra Jyothi welcomed 25 trainees and 1 field coordinator from the 4th batch of RCICBID India for an inspiring and immersive learning journey. The group explored our programs, engaged in meaningful discussions, and experienced the power of inclusion firsthand through blindfolded activities, building empathy and deepening their understanding of the world of the visually impaired. On April 26, 2025, the Inclusion Movement volunteers accompanied 25 of our visually impaired students on an educational visit to the Indian Music Experience Museum in JP Nagar, Bangalore. The students had a wonderful and enriching experience as they explored the museum, guided and supported by the volunteers throughout the visit. On May 9, 2025, Alimco, Artificial Limbs Manufacturing Corporation of India, invited 8 students to receive smartphones and Braille kits as part of their initiative to empower persons with disabilities. The devices were graciously distributed by Shri S. Govindaraj, the Commissioner for Persons with Disabilities for the states of West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Assam, Karnataka, and Kerala. The heartwarming event took place at the Alimco office in Jalahalli, Bangalore, following meticulous verification of the beneficiaries' documents. Celebrating GAAD at LinkedIn Bengaluru May 15, Mitra Jyothi was honored to be invited by LinkedIn to mark Global Accessibility Awareness Day at their Bengaluru office. Our team at Mitra Jyothi showcased key assistive technologies that empower the visually impaired. Screen readers demo of NVDA and JAWS showing how users browse the internet. Low vision features screen magnifiers, high contrast settings and pointer enhancements. Lazarillo app, an accessible GPS tool for navigation. Be My Eyes app, live assistance through volunteers and AI for real-time visual support. Daisy device showcasing its application for accessible learning and information access through digital talking books. Braille demonstration of reading, writing and spelling in Braille. The event sparked insightful conversations on digital inclusion, accessibility, and the power of tech to transform lives. From May 19 to 21, Mitra Jyothi students had an unforgettable experience during a vibrant, activity-based personality development workshop led by Geetha Suresh from Creating Futures. Through engaging sessions focused on communication, concentration, and positive thinking, our students explored their inner potential and built essential life skills with enthusiasm and joy. It was a fun, engaging, and truly inspiring experience for all. A heartfelt thank you to Geetha for crafting such a meaningful and impactful learning journey for our students. Employees of Biocon visited Mitra Jyothi at 2:30 p.m. on May 21. Mitra Jyothi was honored to welcome a group of enthusiastic employees from Biocon to Mitra Jyothi as part of their impactful CSR initiative. With open hearts and a strong desire to make a positive difference, these remarkable individuals delved into the world of visually impaired individuals, eager to understand their challenges and find ways to contribute to their journey. During their visit, our guests were taken on an eye-opening sensitizing module and tour of the Mitra Jyothi Rehabilitation Center. They witnessed firsthand the incredible array of programs and services that empower visually impaired individuals to conquer their day-to-day challenges with resilience and grace. The dedication and warmth of Mitra Jyothi team left them amazed as they learned about the comprehensive support system that Mitra Jyothi offers, enabling our inmates to lead lives filled with purpose and fulfillment. May 31, 2025 was a day to remember as Mitra Jyothi celebrated the valedictory function of our 59th Digital Literacy Batch at Mitra Jyothi. The event was graced by Mr. T.D. Dharial, President of the National Association for the Blind, Delhi, whose inspiring words uplifted every heart in the room. Each certificate awarded was more than just paper. It marked a milestone in our students' journey towards digital empowerment and independence. Our students shared moving stories of transformation and growth, reminding us all of the power of opportunity and education. The day ended on a high note with joyful music and dance performances by the students. Ms. Madhu Singhal attended a conference on June 14 at the Bangalore International Centre. It was truly inspiring to learn about Ashwat Prasanna, a 17-year-old who developed eyesight, the world's most affordable smart glasses. Mitra Jyothi wishes him all the very best and hopes he continues to create innovative solutions that meaningfully support people with disabilities. The conference was well organized. Ms. Madhu Singhal was one of the speakers and shared her inspiring journey of founding and building Mitra Jyothi. The other speakers also shared their experiences and insights thoughtfully and effectively. 15 Coconut Laddu Recipe. Ingredients: for about 10-12 laddus. 1-2 cups fresh grated coconut, or desiccated coconut. 2-1 cup condensed milk, like Milkmaid. 3-3 cardamom pods, optional, for flavor. 4-2 tablespoon ghee, clarified butter. 5 a few cashews or almonds, optional, for garnish. Step-by-step method. Step 1. Heat the pan. Take a non-stick pan or kadai. Add 1 tablespoon ghee and let it melt. Step 2. Add coconut. Put in the grated coconut, keep 2-3 tablespoons aside for rolling later. Roast it lightly for 2-3 minutes on low flame, don't let it turn brown. Step 3. Add condensed milk. Pour the condensed milk into the pan. Stir and mix well with the coconut. Step 4. Flavoring. Crush cardamom seeds and add them. Stir continuously on low flame until the mixture thickens and leaves the sides of the pan, around 7-8 minutes. Step 5. Cool a bit. Switch off the flame and let the mixture cool until it is warm, easy to touch. Step 6. Shape the laddus. Grease your palms with ghee. Take a small portion of the mixture and roll into round laddus. Step 7. Coating. Roll each laddu in the dry grated coconut you kept aside. Optional, press a cashew or almond on top for garnish. 16 Radio Hudon News. International Purple Fest Goa 2025, a celebration of inclusion and empowerment. The vibrant state of Goa is once again gearing up to host the International Purple Fest 2025, a landmark event dedicated to celebrating diversity, inclusion, and the spirit of persons with disabilities, PWDS. Known as India's biggest inclusive festival, Purple Fest brings together thought leaders, changemakers, innovators, and the disability community from across the globe to share ideas, experiences, and solutions that foster accessibility and equal opportunities. Danish Mahajan named Brand Ambassador. This year's edition comes with a proud moment for Radio Hudon. Danish Mahajan, founder of Radio Hudon, has been selected as the Brand Ambassador in the blindness category. His consistent efforts towards accessibility, disability empowerment, and providing a voice to the community through Radio Hudon have been widely recognized. This prestigious honor adds another feather to his cap and further strengthens his commitment to the cause of inclusion. Exciting announcement! Career Guidance Workshop at Purple Fest. In yet another inspiring initiative, Radio Hudon and MAD Foundation are coming together at the International Purple Fest, Goa to host a one-of-a-kind career guidance workshop for persons with disabilities. Workshop details. 1 theme: Beyond Barriers. Expanding Horizons for Persons with Disabilities. 2 date: October 11, 2025. 3 time: 9:30 a.m. 5:30 p.m. 4 venue: International Purple Fest, Goa. This full-day workshop will open up possibilities by exploring diverse career pathways, including 1 law, 2 civil services, 3 corporate sector, 4 entrepreneurship and freelancing, 5 employment opportunities for unskilled individuals. The workshop promises to be a day filled with inspiration, guidance, and empowerment, with direct access to experts, mentors, and successful role models. Registration is now open. Participants can now register through the International Purple Fest app and secure their spot at this historic event. Don't miss your chance to be part of this movement for inclusion and opportunity. Need help? Contact Purple Connect. To ensure seamless participation and accessibility, the International Purple Fest Goa 2025 has launched Purple Connect, the official helpline for persons with disabilities and visitors. 1 call/WhatsApp 956-087-4098. 2 email disabilityhelpline@asdhaindia.in. 3 timings: Monday to Friday 9 a.m. 5 p.m. 4 languages: Hindi and English. 5 service begins August 18, 2025. Helpline proudly announced by at ASDHAindia, Office of the State Commission for Persons with Disabilities Goa, and Department for Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities. A call to action. Purple Fest is not just an event, it's a movement towards building an inclusive India. We encourage everyone, students, professionals, NGOs, corporates, and the disability community to take part, learn, connect, and contribute. Let's join hands at International Purple Fest Goa 2025 to celebrate inclusion, discover opportunities, and create a future without barriers. Article 2. 17 new exam guidelines for persons with disabilities. The Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities has issued new guidelines on August 1, 2025 for all competitive written examinations linked to jobs and admissions in professional or technical courses. Radio Hudon has been advocating for such changes for a long time, and these guidelines bring positive reforms. Key highlights: 1. Independent writing encouraged with laptops, screen readers, magnifiers, Braille, and recording devices. 2. Scribes to be provided by exam bodies from a verified pool within 2 years. Using one's own scribe will only be allowed as a last option. 3. Scribe rules. Must be 2-3 academic years below exam qualification. Subject-matched scribes for science/technical courses. 4 extra time. At least 20 minutes per hour for candidates with writing limitations, with or without scribe. 5 accessible centers. Ramps, signage, audio announcements, quiet rooms, and trained staff are mandatory. 6 accountability. Complaint system for PWDs, penalties for non-compliance, and annual staff sensitization. Effective date. These rules apply from August 1, 2025. Exam bodies must revise their policies within 3 months, and the scribe pool must be ready in 2 years. Why it matters. This is a big win for the disability rights movement. By focusing on technology and reducing overdependence on scribes, the system will now be fairer, inclusive, and empowering for persons with disabilities. This learning material is distributed free of cost under the Project of Financial Support for Development of Accessible Learning Materials under SIPDA Scheme for Implementation of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, DPUD, Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, Government of India. Nodal Agency. National Institute for the Empowerment of the Persons with Visual Disabilities, NIAPD, Dehradun.